What's going on, everyone? My name is Josie Frenels, and today joining me is Andrew Lofthouse. If you don't already know him, get to know. He's one of the coaches at Manchester Top Team. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Yourself, mate?
Very well. Obviously, the UK scene at the moment, the progression that the sport's been able to make the last 18 months, in terms of being a part of that with Manchester Top Team and seeing the growth of the sport as a whole, what's that sort of been like to see?
Do you know what? It's good. Can you hear me? I just put my headphones in a bit.
Yeah.
There we go. To be honest, it's good. The scene is growing fast, and it's good to see people who are like putting so much time and effort actually make a career out of it. There's a few people starting to get paid now. It's a good. Lost you. All right, there we go. Might get there, right?
But as well, and obviously with the growth, there's obviously things that come with that in terms of the bad things in the sport. Sometimes there's matchmaking, there's gym politics sometimes, and there's all these things that can sort of hinder it. But in terms of sort of seeing what's going well and what could be changed, what's your sort of opinion in terms of looking at it?
I just think sometimes people are a bit narrow-minded. If you go back into the 90s, early 2000s and that, like, people were like focusing on being the best in their area, trying to get a reputation for themselves. We try to look past that at our gym. We try and push the ethos of you're looking to be the best in the world. So if we've got to train with people and then fight them a couple of weeks later, it isn't an issue to us. Like, we're all on the same journey, and there's many ways to get to the end goal. But yeah, it's just, you know what, I think we upset the apple cart when we came around, because like a lot of fighters came to us. That's not on us. That's on them. They saw the bodies on the mat. They saw the level of the training partners, and a lot of people came. And you know, people want you to do well, but they don't want you to do better than them. And I think a lot of that happens from every area. Like if someone's trained in a gym and then they've opened their own gym and they're getting their own stable of fighters and that. But people just need to drop their egos a little bit, I think. And you know, in the UK, if we all work together, we can get a real good like British team. Well, not so much team, but like good stable of fighters that are like doing really well on every single promotion. You can get top level fighters, Bellator, UFC, PFL, Octagon. You know, there's some real talent in the UK, and it's a shame to see like the politics hinders it a bit.
And then also sort of the pathways into the sport now. You know, you can use MMA now to gain qualifications. Obviously, jiu-jitsu recently, they can now teach it in schools. And there's obviously a lot more pathways like Vida itself, Road to Venator, and giving these sort of outlets to grow and develop as fighters and having these more regional shows. Do you feel as though that's sort of been a big benefit for these fighters to have such platforms really early on, even in their amateur careers?
Yeah, 100%. Like, there's many platforms now, but there's not many fighters that are willing to fight. They're more bothered about their Insta reputation and how many followers they've got. In reality, there's enough shows, and you know what? They're all good shows. There's no real bad shows like that. You could be fighting 10 times a year. If you're doing your training right and you're not like ballooning after a fight, you can be just in training, constantly fighting. Like if you go to the Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, like these guys are fighting 2-3 times a week and they're just staying active. That's what these kids want to be doing as amateurs. They should be fighting every week, in my opinion. They shouldn't be weight cutting. They should be fighting at the weight they're at and just getting so much experience under the belt and not worrying about this title or this person said he can beat me and all that bullshit. It's, you know, it's crazy.
Yeah, and then also sort of having the coaches that can give that sort of advice, and people, as the sport progresses, the more experienced people get and the more experienced coaches become. In terms of sort of maybe looking at it in your time of MMA, even to now, what has sort of the progression even of the knowledge of the sport in this country been like? And how is that sort of a benefit for those that are starting to come into the sport as well?
Yeah, I think you're finally starting to get true MMA gyms. I think in the past, a lot of gyms have been, you know, either Thai boxing specialists, grappling specialists, all that sort of stuff. And there's still many gyms out there, don't get me wrong. Especially like in America and over here, like, they're still teaching jiu-jitsu and then they'll teach boxing and like, but like MMA is coming into its own now. People are starting to really develop like a true MMA game. So like everything, because to be honest, it's not like a Thai boxing will win you a fight or a boxing or wrestling. You know, it's the in between. It's in the transitions where you win the fights. It's where the MMA is put together and how you like develop it all. that's the development I'm seeing over the last maybe 4 or 5 years. You know, it's just getting better and better. Like, unfortunately, like me with injury, like I was looking to have a comeback fight. Do I want to have a comeback fight? I'd probably say no now, because, you know, the level of the amateurs is fucking like really high. And do I want to start dieting again? Do I want to put myself through the paces of like some of these kids who are coming through like 19, 20 years old? They've got so much energy. They've got so much knowledge. You know, the level's crazy, but it can get even better.
Yeah, and you mentioned there in terms of the age thing, do you feel as though younger fighters that are 19, 20, they're already going on to bigger shows and doing all these things? Do you feel as though fighters are becoming even more talented at a younger age than before? Whereas now you can see 20-year-olds that are ready to sort of go and fight in big promotions in the rankings, whereas before maybe not. Do you feel as though younger talent are able to progress a lot quicker than it used to be?
Yeah, and I personally think it's down to what the coaches have had to go through. So if you look at some of the top coaches in the country, like they've all been through it. Brad Pickett's, James Doolan up in Scotland, like all over. Like these have all been through hard fights. Like I think back before I started MMA, with amateur MMA used to just be pro MMA without elbows in it, in 4-ounce gloves and that. These guys have gone through the rough times, like making no money, and they've put their necks on the line to be able to provide back to the future generation. And I'm a big believer in that. Like, obviously at Top Team, we've got MTTYP, which is the education system we have in place, that we, like myself and Cal do, along with Lauren, who runs it for us. But like our vision for the gym is to like use this stable of fighters and this generation of fighters to be able to provide a flat platform for even the next generation. Because you think if say 10 fighters make a real good screw out of MMA and make good money, then they leave their legacy by providing a platform for the next bunch. So you can come into a gym and you've got your food covered, you've got your training covered, you've got your strength and conditioning covered. Like in an ideal world, like now they have to go through struggle. They have to like find a way to be able to pay for it all and mess around with work and all bills and things like that. But like, you know, in the long term, if they like, we could all provide a platform for the next generation, like when they're like 14, 15, to just say, look, come into the gym after school. There's your food. There's your strength and conditioning. You've got a dietitian here. You've got everything there. Like, can you imagine the level it'd be at if they had no worries other than just like coming and training? It'd be amazing.
100%. And you mentioned there in terms of the outlet that Top Team are able to provide with the youth project, and then as well at the gym, you've got Sports Co, there's S&C coaches, nutritionists, all these different things that are in sort of one place. And having that there for the fighters that are coming up, the fighters that are already at that level, how do you sort of feel that that is for those fighters? I know you touched on it a little bit, but in terms of having everything in one place and their progress being able to make that, how important do you feel as though that is to make it so that they don't have to travel here or pay this person that for this and doing all these different sort of things?
Well, that's the vision. That's obviously that Carl got me on board with that vision. Like, this is what I want to provide. This is what I want to do, and I'm well on board with it. When I quit work to train full time, I went and studied youth work, so I became a youth worker in that time as well. So I've always wanted to give back to the community and to like the future generations. Like, that's always been something like close to my heart. So, you know, just like I had to work a full-time job as a fighter. It was stressful. Like, you couldn't train as well as you wanted to. You pick up niggles at work, and then when you pick up niggles in the gym, it's affecting your work and it's costing you money, and you know, it's a big stress. So to be able to just focus on training and performing on the night, you know, it's just in a dream world. I wish I'd had that 20 years ago. I wish someone had done that for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned in terms of the youth projects and you being a youth worker as well, in terms of this sport, not only being able to help fighters, but maybe bringing people sort of off the streets and into a gym setting, having that there as well in terms of being able to do those things where you can bring someone in, provide them with a platform. Do you feel as though the sport's got less stigma around it as it used to? Or do you feel as though now it's a much more comfortable sport for a kid like young or just coming off the streets to get into?
Andrew, I think it's an amazing thing to, even if you don't want to be a fighter, it's an amazing thing to get into, because it you know, it trains you to learn to like control your emotions, and that's key. Like in society now, like you're told from a young age, release your emotions. It's okay to cry, this, that, and the other. And yeah, it probably is okay to cry at an early age, but as you get older, you can't let emotions control you. You've got to control them, and you've got to like make wise decisions. You've got to be focused all the time. So MMA, like, you to understand who you are. Like, it gives you an identity. You're not looking for like you find that like between the ages of like 13 and 20, people are trying to find who they are. They're trying to fit into a bit of a niche, and gyms like any martial arts gym is, you know, it's a home for people, and regardless of what color creed you are, like what your beliefs are, you know, it's a good way to find out who you are. It's a good way to like have a little bit of self-confidence, understand that you can protect yourself if need to. Like, you're not trying to prove anything to anyone. And that's what I like to say to fighters, like, you're not trying to prove anything to anyone other than yourself. You're there for you. And like, if you focus on yourself and you build yourself and you become the best version of you, then you build your oyster, regardless of what you want to do. If you want to be like an artist, like just understanding who you are as a person, which an MMA gym will do to you, you can achieve what you want if you put your mind to it.
Yeah, and then sort of when you do look at these fighters that do come in and sort of seeing the changes in them and how they progress, as a coach, to be a part of their journey and see them go on to achieve great things, whether it be in fighting or outside of that, what's it sort of like knowing that you are sort of part of this next generation that are coming through and knowing that you're aiding people on their journeys through the career?
Do you know, it's a good, there's no unselfish deed. Like, everyone does something to get something out of it, but you know, to be able to help people achieve their thing and get a bit of a buzz of it, to say, do you know, I was a part of that, I helped that at one stage, you know, it's a good buzz. Like, some people call it clout chasing. It's not really clout chasing. I'm not bothered. Like, especially our gym, there's a lot of people who are not bothered. They'll shy away from the pictures. They don't need to have their names put on things. It's about the individual themselves. But you know, I'm just happy that the lads are starting to, especially like this year, a lot of the lads are getting on big shows and that, and they're starting to pave the ways. They're starting to improve their lives, their outlook on life, and that. You know, it's good to see.
Yeah, and obviously even now, some of the younger fighters that are in the gym are able to coach as well. Two names that come to mind straight away for me is Stafford Swainston and Malachi Edwards, in terms of their already being able to be at a point where they're able to teach the knowledge that's maybe been passed on from yourself or others. Seeing them at such a young age already being able to the coach, and from other gyms as well being able to, what do you sort of feel as though that's doing for the sport to have these younger figures for kids to sort of look up to already?
Do you know, it's just showing that the fight is not the be all and end all. Because let's be honest, 90% of people that come into the gym to train will never be a champion. They'll never get to the stages where they're going to make big money. There's only a select few. So if there's another outlet where you can stay within your sport that you love, that you've been in with for a long time, it's always good to have a backup, whether it be judging and refereeing, becoming a medic, a cutman, hand rapper, journalist. You know, you want to try and provide a platform alongside fighting just in case something happens. You know, like I said myself, I was training, I worked, I was fighting, and then I made the decision to quit work full time. I put everything into fighting. 3 months later, I got an injury, ended my career. So fortunately, I've coached for a long time since I was a kid myself, so I had that to fall back on. But if I didn't have that, I'd probably be lost.
Yeah, and then as well, so you touched on earlier in terms of the matchmaking and people not wanting fights. Obviously, you can mention one name and several people will turn it down, even if it's at an amateur level. But do you feel as though that is sort of one of the biggest issues that we see at the moment, where fighters are having to go a year without a fight, or platforms having to fly people in to fight them simply because no one in their own country is accepting the fight with them? Do you feel as though that's sort of one of the big problems that you'll sort of find in the UK scene at the moment?
Yeah, it's massive. You know yourself, working with us on the Vida shows, like, people can criticize the opponents our guys go against, but we have offered so many people so many fights. Like, maybe it's not the right time. We understand, like, it's got to be the right time, this, that, and the other. But like, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous, and people will say, "Oh, they're just protecting the guys. They're just getting cans." Blah blah blah. Like, even for Lewis McGrillen, like the amount of money that we had to pay to bring that Brazilian in was absolutely ridiculous, and we was offering it everyone left, right, and center. So, you know what? I understand that when you're a professional, your early stages of professionals, you've got to protect your fighter, you've got to build your fighter, because they are a brand. Like, if you build a car and then you go and like smash the back end out of it straight away and you're ragging it everywhere, it ain't gonna last long. So building your fighter is good. Building a support for them, like getting followers, building like an influence, you know, like a social media presence, and that I understand. But once they start getting to like 5, 6, 7, and oh, things like that, then you need to start fighting each other. But again, you also need to start fighting each other for the right money. So at the Vida, we will always offer good money for the fights.
Yeah, and you mentioned there in terms of sort of the financial aspects of fighting as well. Obviously, I know working with Vida that fighters are paid well, and everyone involved paid well as well. In terms of the fighters having to cover that financial aspect, and it's not something that's really touched on too much, especially at a sort of lower level. How important is it so that the fighters are able to actually make something out of the fight so that they can pay off the camps that they've done or fees that just come along with the fighting?
It's very important. Working in management as well, we get a lot of people saying, "Oh, can you get me a sponsor? Can you get me a sponsor?" And I wish I could. I wish I could. Like every time I sent an email to someone to sponsor someone, they were just like, "Yeah, it's okay. Here's $1,000." It's not realistic. Sponsors only really happen if you've got friends and family who know someone. Blah blah blah. So what I'm advising and what we're advising now is they've got to understand what they are. They're a business, so they have to promote themselves. They've got to do the social media stuff. They've got to be reaching out to people, talking to everyone at every opportunity, popping the face around the local places. You don't have to go out and get steaming every night or taking drugs and stuff, but you've got to have a social presence. And even if they hate it, like, just do it. Just be there, because then people will come start watching. You get a bit of a following. That's what Paddy Pimblett's done so great. Like, whether you like him or not, like, the guy has got a following. He's got a massive following because he's always been like making his presence known and things like that. Same with Mohammed Makayev. Makayev was doing it at like 13 years old before he was even fighting. Like, look how many people follow him now. That's what you've got to do. It's entertainment as well as fighting. If you haven't got the entertainment, you probably won't go far. So sell yourself.
Yeah, and in terms of sort of being able to build these platforms and be able to move on as fighters from the financial aspect, and in regional MMA, it used to be before maybe a gym versus a gym, but now people are really invested in these fighters. Some of them already like local heroes. There's a few from your gym already that have picked up loads of attention. But in terms of seeing them be able to sort of become these fighters, do you feel as though sometimes it can be a little bit rushed for them? And then how do you sort of help them handle that sort of maybe pressure that builds up from everyone wanting to see them win, or even if they want to see them lose as well?
You just got to normalize everything. So when we try and make whatever happens, we just try and take it in a stride, take it on like as it comes. Like, don't control what you can't control, only worry about the things you can control. So, we just say normalize everything. That's why when we do sparring, sometimes like you'll be locked in a cage, everyone will be stood around cheering you on, egging you on, things like that. You've got to learn to control your emotions again. Like, focus on what you're doing, all this, that, and the other. So, yeah, that's why we just try and normalize it. It is what it is. Control what you can. Don't worry about what you can't.
Yeah, and then just a final thing for myself. If there's any advice that you can give to a person that's considering getting into a sport, someone that's already in the sport, or whatever level they're at, what is the main sort of pieces of advice that they should be looking to try and follow or look at in terms of their fighting careers?
Listen to your coaches. You might not always stay with the same coaches, but genuinely, usually when you start off, your coaches have got your best intentions at heart. Things may change, but like, if you are planning to move on to another gym, this, that, and the other, you just sit with your coaches, chat to them. Like, communication is key in this game. So communication with your teammates, your coaches, learn to sell yourself as an individual. Like, you are your business. You are, say if you're, like Coca-Cola, you are your own Coca-Cola. You have to sell yourself. You have to market yourself. You've got to like brand yourself if possible. And don't expect anything. No one's owed anything in this game. Like, if you work for it, it'll come. If you don't, then you ain't going to get anything. Like, luck only comes if you put yourself out there and you work hard for it.
Yeah, and that is everything from myself. If you'd like to take a chance just to shout anything that's going on at the moment, top gym, anything like that, obviously just feel free to go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, big shout out to all the top team. We've obviously got Kiru and Pav Sahota fighting on Cage Warriors on the 24th. Louis Lightning, Lewis McGrillen, and Dakota fighting on PFL. As it's Friday today. This weekend we've got 3 on UAE Warriors. So we've got Shoaib Yusuf, we have Maxwell, and we have Ibra El Faki, who are all smashing it over in the UAE. So shout out to them boys. Smash it, lads.
There you go. Well, that is everything from me. Keep your eye on Manchester top team. And if you aren't looking into UK MMA, yeah, looking into it. But I appreciate your time today, buddy. Thank you very much.
Speak soon, mate. Bye.
You too, buddy.